Hi and welcome to Sew Amelia, my vlog where I talk all about making a handmade wardrobe for me and my children. In this week's vlog, I will be sharing everything that I made in October. So October was rather a busy month for us. We had half term and my boys were off for 2 weeks, which was lovely, but it did mean a little bit less sewing time. Having said that though, I did manage to make quite a few things this month, including a few really important basics for my wardrobe that are already being worn a lot. So if you're new here, welcome. I love to talk about the things that I make and sew for myself and my children. It's lovely to have you here. If you do enjoy the video today, please do subscribe and give it a like at the end. It would be great and help my channel to grow. If you are a subscriber, thank you so much for following along on my sewing journey. It means so much to know that you are here and to have you coming back week after week. And I do love chatting with you all in the comments below. It's been fantastic learning about new patterns and new techniques from you all, so thank you very much. So we'll jump straight in, and the first thing I'm going to talk about today is my Nielsen Hovea coat. Now I'm only going to talk about this a little bit because I did publish an entire vlog about the process of making this beautiful quilted coat, but I'll share a little bit of it for you here, and if you want more details then do pop over and look at that vlog. I'll pop a link to it in the description box below. So the Nielsen Hovea coat comes in 3 different lengths. You've got a coat length, a mid length and a cropped length, and I chose to make my coat in the mid length. And here it is. So I made it in a beautiful denim shearling fabric that I bought from the Fabric Godmother. It is so cozy. It feels quite thin, which was great in terms of getting it through the machine, but it has a lot of warmth to it and I've really enjoyed wearing it. Even on cooler autumn mornings, it provides just such a lovely extra layer of added warmth. What I did was I decided to do the bound version with the pockets, hope you can see those, and the ties across the front. I wanted to do the ties just so that I could close it up on a winter morning if I wanted to, just to provide a bit more warmth. The pockets are so lovely and big. They certainly fit keys and phones and all sorts in them, and it's just been a great addition to my autumn and going into the winter wardrobe. I'll probably have to put it away when it gets really cold, but for right now it's perfect. I chose to add a loop here for hanging it up, which I'm really pleased with, and on the back I added a beautiful label from Little Rosy Cheeks. This is one of her leather labels and it says Me Made. So Nielsen patterns come in a great range of sizes. She has the Nielsen Hovea coat for sizes 0 to 20, and then she has the Hovea Curve coat which comes in sizes 14 to 34, so it's great to see such an inclusive pattern. I bought the Hovea coat in the straight 0 to 20 sizing for a B cup, but it is an oversized coat, so whilst I fell into the measurements for a size 10 to 12, so 10 at my bust and 12 for my waist and hips, I decided to size down and make the size 8, as I just felt that that would give me the slightly snugger fit that I prefer. And I'm really happy with the fit. It fits perfectly, especially over sort of lighter layers that you tend to wear in autumn anyway. I think it would still fit over a cozy jumper as well, and I may wear it yet when it gets really cold under another one of my warmer, thicker coats. So I do think it's just a really lovely extra layer and the fit is fine. The only thing I'd say is because I'm a pear shape, sometimes pieces of clothing that finish on the hip aren't quite as flattering as cropped lengths. So I think I would like to try this coat again in the spring in the cropped length, and I've already spied out some beautiful quilted fabric at Merchant & Mills that I have my eye on for the spring next year. In terms of finishing off that coat, I did choose to finish it off with bias binding. Now there are instructions for both sewing that on with the machine and hand sewing it. Now the hand sewing instructions are mainly for those who want the coat to be fully reversible. I know I won't wear it with a shearling on the outside, it's nice to have the option, but I did choose to hand sew my binding down just because I wanted to make sure that it looked neat on the inside, and I hate stitching in the ditch, so I did choose to hand sew that down. But also my machine is getting quite old now and I didn't want to exhaust it by trying to have it sew through so many layers of the shearling fabric, so I did choose to hand sew my binding down. Having said that, my machine did cope very well with the fabric for the most part. I think the trickiest bit was sewing in the arms where you had 2 or 3 different layers of the shearling fabric to sew through. However, we got there in the end. I'm really pleased with it and I enjoyed the hand sewing actually. It was quite meditative and enjoyable, and I just watched a film and chatted to my mum in New Zealand whilst I was hand sewing that binding down. So there's lots of happy memories associated with that coat of good chats with my mum whilst sewing it up. Now the next make I'm going to share with you is one that I've already talked about on my week in sewing video, so if you have watched that one you'll probably know about this make already. And if you would like more details again on this pattern, do feel free to pop over to that video and look at how I got on with making this jumper. The link will be in the description box below. So here it is. My next make was the Billie jumper, and I made it in this beautiful fabric from By Graziella that I bought at the Knitting and Stitching show. Now I only got a metre of this because it was in the remnants bin. So what I decided to do when I cut out the sleeves was to cut the pattern and cut the fabric at the lengthen and shorten lines, and then the amount of fabric that I lost by doing that in terms of the seam I added onto the cuff. So the sleeve is still a great length on me, it's fine, and I actually don't mind this sort of feature, I suppose, of the jumper. Because of the pattern actually, I don't think you would notice it necessarily unless I pointed it out. So I'm really pleased with how that turned out. When I make the Billie jumper, that's a pattern by Tilly and the Buttons, I size down for this one because it's a very oversized pattern. I fall into a size 4 for Tilly patterns across my bust, and then into a size 5 for my hips. My waist is usually a size 4 as well. But the size 4 measurements were really, really big, especially across my bust, and I wanted this jumper to be slightly more fitted. So I did decide to make a size 2 across the bust, graded to a 3 at the waist and a 4 over the hips, which fits perfectly. I cut out the hemband in a size 4 as well. Now for this version I used some Atelier Brunette ribbing that I had bought for another jumper that I wanted to use up, and I'm so glad that I did. I think the colour isn't quite perfect, but it looks fine, and it's just nice to use that up and get it out of my stash. Unfortunately I didn't have quite enough to do the hemband as well, so I did end up using the same fabric for that. Now it doesn't have quite as much stretch as I would like, but because I wear it over high-waisted trousers and things, it actually looks fine and it fits fine. This fabric is so cozy and warm, I love it. I wore this a lot when we were away on our half-term break because it's just so snuggly and warm, and I'm looking forward to wearing this a lot over the winter months, so I'm really pleased with that make. That's the Billie jumper by Tilly and the Buttons in a By Graziella fabric. I will put all the information about the patterns and the fabrics in the description box below, so if you want to go and look at any of the fabrics or the patterns, I'll pop the links down there. I wanted to add some more basics to my wardrobe this month, especially going into the cooler weather, and one of the basics that I wanted to try was the Tilly and the Buttons Freya top. Now this comes as a pattern in her stretch book, and it's the only pattern I've made from there at the moment, but I do hope that I will make a few more of those patterns in the months to come. So the Freya top unfortunately doesn't come in the widest size range because that book was made for sizes, Tilly sizes 1 to 8. Now I chose to make a Tilly size 4 across the bust and the waist, and I graded to a 5 across the hips. And I'm really pleased with the fit of this Freya top. I made it in a Mind the Maker cotton jersey. I really wanted to try a Mind the Maker cotton jersey, and I saw this one on offer at Minerva, and I decided to pick up I think I got 1.2 meters of that. It was really easy to sew with, lovely to sew with, and it's very, very soft and comfortable to wear, so I did really enjoy working with it. I chose to buy it in the Indigo Night colourway, which is a very nice dark navy, as I thought that would go under quite a few of my dresses and also underneath my Zadie jumpsuit, just allowing me to get a little bit more wear out of those summer makes. So I'm just under 5'5", and the length of this is perfect for me. It comes down to just almost my low hip actually. It's quite long on me, but I like that because I can tuck it into my skirts and wear it underneath my dresses and jumpsuits, and it provides a little bit more coverage and warmth. However, if I were to wear it on its own, I would want it to be a little bit shorter. So if I ever did make this top to wear untucked, I would definitely take at least an inch off the length of it. But as I wear it underneath dresses or tucked into jeans and trousers, it's fine as it is. Now I was making basics this month, as I said, and I wanted to try another pattern for a long sleeved top. And I decided to try the Nielsen Rowan pattern. And again, this comes in 2 different size bands, her straight Rowan pattern and her curve Rowan pattern. So that's great. So it comes in a full 0 to 34 size range. For more information on the patterns and things, do pop over and look at my October plans video, because I do go into more detail about the patterns in that video. So for the Nielsen Rowan, I decided to make the bodysuit, as I wanted to have a go at that. And I chose to make one bodysuit like the Freya with the mock turtleneck, and I chose to make my second one with a crew neck. Now both of these fabrics are from the lovely Andrea and Keris at beyond the pink door, and they were just lovely to work with. I particularly love this stripy one. It's so comfy and cozy to wear. In terms of a comparison between the Freya and the Rowan, I think in terms of ease of use, the Freya top is probably easier in terms of not having to unbutton it at important moments, if you know what I mean. However, these are really, really cozy. There's something about having something that is totally covering you and not letting any of the cold air in that keeps you so cozy when you're out on long walks in the winter. So I've really been enjoying wearing these. So far I've worn them under dresses and with trousers. The only thing with trousers is because they have a full bottom piece, you do get a bit of a line showing through your trousers, which I don't love, but for the added warmth and comfiness and coziness, I'll take it. To be honest, I usually tuck in my long tops into my tights just to make sure they don't ride up. So to have a bodysuit takes away any of those issues. So the pattern comes in two halves, the bodice piece and then the bottom piece, and the bottom piece can either be the bottom of a top if you choose to make the turtleneck top, or the bottom piece is for the bodysuit. So you have to put the pattern pieces together when you trace them out in order to choose the version that you're going to make. It's finished off with elastic, and you sew the elastic in almost as if you were making a swimsuit, and then you finish off the area here with the poppers with some woven scraps. Now you'll notice the same woven scrap here as I used on my Hovea coat. That was left over from my daughter's dress I made for her birthday, and I'm really enjoying being able to use up all these scraps on different projects. The way that that was finished off in the pattern was really lovely. In fact, I always love Megan Nielsen patterns. The instructions are really great. They hold your hand. There are very clear pictures, and I really enjoy sewing them up. For this version, I decided to try the crew neckline, and I really like this version. I like where the crew neck sits. It is quite a high crew neck, but again, in the autumn and winter, I like the extra warmth that that provides. And I decided to play with the stripes by putting them vertically here along the neckband and then obviously horizontally across the rest of the bodysuit. I did try and pattern match across the seam here, and I'm quite pleased with how that turned out for the most part. And yeah, I'm just really enjoying wearing those. I wasn't sure if I would like a bodysuit, but they're definitely going to become a staple part of my wardrobe as we go into the winter months. The next pattern I'm going to talk about is what I'm wearing today, and this is my Tilly and the Buttons Lyra dress. So the Lyra dress is a shirt dress, a recent pattern that's been released by Tilly and the Buttons, and I've wanted to try it for a long time, but I was just waiting for the right fabric. And when I saw this fabric at Minerva, I knew that I wanted to try it. I think it's such a beautiful autumnal fabric, and I absolutely love the colours in this print. The fabric recommendations for this pattern are light to medium woven fabrics such as cotton and cotton lawn. Now I chose to make it in a viscose challis fabric, which I had never tried before, but I really loved the feel and the drape of the fabric, and I wanted to give it a go as I thought it would make quite a nice swishy version of the Lyra dress. Now you can see today I've got it layered up over a merino wool turtleneck because it's cold today and I've been cycling the children to school, so I wanted to be warm. However, I think this would look fine without this underneath, obviously, so I'm looking forward to being able to wear this into the spring as well. In terms of the pattern, as I've said, my measurements place me into a Tilly size 4 across the bust and waist and into a 5 across the hips. But looking at the finished measurements of the Lyra dress and reading other reviews online, I knew that it is quite a large and blousy fit, and I wasn't sure that I really wanted that. So what I decided to do was to size down to the size 3. Going off the finished measurements, that looked like it would have plenty of ease whilst being slightly more fitted than the size 4. And I'm really glad that I did make the size 3. I also added waist ties just to draw in a little bit across the waist and give me a slightly snugger fit, which I really like. The only amendment I made to the pattern was to leave off the pockets. I just thought in this swishy fabric, the pockets might weigh it down a little bit, and if I put something in the pockets then it would take away from the line of the dress and just weigh everything down. So I decided to leave the pockets out of this version. The other thing I did was to shorten the length of the bottom tier. When I looked at the dress pattern pieces, I thought it was just going to be far too long on me. I like sort of midi length skirts, but not things that are too long in the winter, especially if I'm wearing the dress to cycle, and having something that's too long just gets in the way. So I did decide to shorten the length of the bottom tier, and I'm really glad that I did, because I like where this falls on me. It's not too long, and yet it is long enough to be a really lovely swishy midi dress. In terms of sewing it up, I used a Microtex needle, and I just went very slowly. The only thing that was slightly tricky was putting in the stay stitching, as the fabric, when it was only one layer thick, really wanted to bunch up. So what I ended up doing was using this Prim forming tape interfacing. It's got like a little line of stitching here, and then the interfacing which you can iron on to your cutout pieces. I bought this for when I was going to make the Ogden cami, but I'm ashamed to say I haven't made that yet. So I knew I had this in my stash of sewing supplies, so when I was struggling to stay stitch the bodice pieces, I thought I'm going to give this a try, and it worked really well. It just stabilized the neckline while I was working with it and easing it into the collar and things, and then when I needed to trim down the seam, it got rid of that line of stitching just to help me to then ease the bodice into the collar. So it worked really well in terms of just keeping the pieces from stretching out whilst I was working with them. Having said that, I did try to handle my fabric as little as possible just to keep it from stretching out, and I was just very careful when easing things out and turning out the collar and things like that. The other thing that I did was to interface both sides of the collar and the collar stand, just to give them a bit more structure, because the fabric is very drapey. So I did use a very lightweight interfacing, but I did interface both sides or both pieces. Now the pattern does instruct you to cut out one collar on the bias and one collar on the straight grain. I just cut them both on the straight grain. I didn't have a lot of this fabric to work with, and I've never cut a piece of the collar on the bias before and the other on the straight grain. I'm sure that that's a very technically correct thing to do, but I was pretty sure it would work if I cut them both on the straight grain. So that's what I did. And again, I'm glad I did, because I had such little pieces of fabric left over, and I think if I'd tried to cut this on the bias, I may not have got the collar and the collar stand out. The collar, I think, went in beautifully. I'm really pleased with the way it turned out. Yeah, it's the first collar and collar stand I've done, and I'm really pleased with it. I decided to finish off the dress using these vintage buttons that I bought from Little Rosy Cheeks at the Knitting and Stitching show, and I'm really glad I got to use those up. There's such a pretty style of button, this little oval shape, and I thought they went really well with the pattern on the fabric of this dress. So I'm really enjoying swishing around in this in the autumn, and I think it will be a well-worn piece in my wardrobe. And then I'm looking forward to being able to remove the underlayer here and wear it in the springtime eventually when that comes around too. So the last project I finished in October was a project for my boys. Now, I find it so hard to find really lovely patterns for my boys as they get older. They do prefer to wear jogging bottoms and sweatshirts now. I have made them shirts before for Easter, which they'll wear once or twice, but it's a lot of effort for one or two wears. So I haven't made them another shirt yet, although I would really love to. So I do tend to make them things like pajamas and sweatshirts that I know they'll get a lot of wear out of. Now, my younger son asked for some dragon pajamas, so we went hunting for some fabric and we found this beautiful print on Amazon. These fun dragons here in the woods. Now these are my older son's pair. My younger sons have a navy base with these same dragons on them, but his are in the wash. Now they've already been worn on constant rotation over the half term. In fact, the boys begged for a pajama day over half term so they could wear them all day long. So they've been well loved already, which is lovely. I made them using a free pattern from Sew Simple Home, and that is her holiday pajamas. I first saw these on Karen's YouTube from So Little Time, and I'll pop a link into Karen's channel down below. She always sews such lovely things for her boys, particularly she sewed these pajamas and some gorgeous coats. So do pop across and see her channel, although I'm sure you're already following her. So I saw Karen sew up these for her boys and I knew I wanted to give the pattern a go. And I'm really glad I did. They sewed up very quickly and they're very comfy. My boys really like wearing them. As I've said, they've not been off all half term. They do need to go in the wash. So I'll be popping them in the wash when I finish this video. I finished these off with some ribbing that I bought from Minerva. And this particular pattern has ribbing on the cuffs of the raglan top and the neckline, and then the trousers are finished off with elastic. Now the elastic waistband is great, it's so comfy for the boys. And my oldest son is fine with the trousers. He quite likes them not being finished with cuffing, but my younger son would really like some cuffing on his next time, he told me. So if you watched my November plans video, you'll see that I have another pair of pajamas planned for my children to be made this month. And I'm trying a different pattern which has cuffing on the bottom of the trousers as well for my younger son. So we'll see how that comes out. So they came together very quickly. I like the style of the raglan t-shirt. It is really, really nice, but what I do find is that this neckline is quite wide on my boys. They are relatively slim, and so this just sits quite far out on their neckline, which is fine. They say it's very comfortable. But I think if I made it again, I would probably try and make this a slightly smaller fit across their neck, just for coziness and comfort, I suppose. But yes, very simple pattern, and it's free, sewed up beautifully, and they're being worn a lot, so what more could you ask for? So I did have a few other makes that were in my October plans video, but because of half term and being off with my boys and having lots of fun with them over their holidays, I haven't sewn up or finished sewing up a few of those things that were in that video. However, they are definitely works in progress, so do look out for those in my November makes video, as they will definitely feature there. So thanks so much for watching today. If you have enjoyed the video, do please give it a thumbs up, as that really helps my channel to grow and for other people to find this video and hopefully enjoy it too. Do let me know in the comments below which of my makes you liked the most this month, and if you've made any of the patterns, do let me know how you found them as well. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great week filled with lots of happy sewing. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!